What's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul with another mail call. This one's very special, and I'm going to be droning on for a little while because there's some big books in this box. If you're new to the channel, I have over 40 years experience collecting comics, and I share my passion for collecting and investing in comic book conservation here on the channel. What we're going to be doing today is an unboxing, and I'm going to reveal a secret that I only became aware of about a year ago that I hope is going to be a trick that viewers of the channel can use to get some great deals on comic books in the future. If you enjoy today's content, please give this video a like, tell a friend about the channel, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We do this kind of content on the regular. So, regular viewers of the channel know that I've been recommending auctions with low starting bids as a great way to find deals on comic books in this buyer's market that we're currently in. With the sell-off in all asset classes that has been triggered by the Federal Open Markets Committee raising rates as a tool to control inflation. And I've said on the channel before, guess what? One asset class that had suffered from significant inflation were collectibles, generally, and comic books specifically. So the Fed is doing a good job. They've created a sell-off in assets, which has resulted in several things: demand destruction and price reductions, meaning they're addressing inflation. So we should be applauding them in the job they're doing. Rather than bemoaning them and claiming that the sky is falling, what we should be doing is recognizing that we can't fight the Fed. We don't have the same tools that they have at their disposal. And so a much more successful strategy, rather than complaining, is to recognize that they're the ones controlling asset prices to a certain degree. They're influencing them much more heavily than we could at any rate. And so we should be buying, we should be net buyers when the Fed is tightening. We should be net sellers when the Fed is lowering interest rates, or what's called loosening monetary policy. So with that in mind, I've been recommending that people look for auctions with very low starting bids as a great way to take advantage of this buyer's market. But sellers are getting wise to that. And sellers are getting less enthusiastic. Wow, what a great pack job was done here, huh? Sellers are getting far less enthusiastic about 99-cent starting bids because it's not going so well for them. Whereas during the bull market of the last 2 years, 99-cent starting bids were often resulting in new record prices. Today, 99-cent starting bids are often resulting in much lower prices realized for their comic books and other assets than they probably would have been able to get with a fixed price transaction. So, as sellers adapt to this market, we need to adapt to this market. So today's video is about giving you some tips on how to navigate these transactions to acquire some truly spectacular comic books for very fair prices, including a secret concierge service for acquiring expensive comic books that most of you don't even know exists, and which is how I got this stack of slabs. So, before we get to that, first, let's see these books. Regular viewers of the channel know that I have a passion for pre-war Golden Age books, typically with CGC census counts under 30. Books that you just don't come across very often in any grade. And I also have a passion for high-grade Silver Age keys. Acquiring these kinds of books allows you to curate a collection that will be the envy of your comic book collecting brethren. So, let's check these out. First, let's start right here. Wow. All American Comics number 22. This is cover dated January 1941, which means it hits the newsstands in December 1940. This book is only the 7th appearance of Green Lantern and the 4th appearance of the Atom in All American Comics. There are only 17 universal copies in the CGC census, and this 6.0 is in the old label, which means it almost certainly has never been cleaned or pressed. What an absolute gem. You can see it passed hands on Comic Link at one point. Beautiful. There is a version here where there's a 15 cents in Canada down in this little bar, and both variants exist. CGC doesn't make a distinction in their census. What a glorious book, though. All right, next up, let's do actually this one next. Adventure Comics number 58. This one's in a CGC Universal 7.0. This is also from January of 1941. The same month as All American Comics number 22. This is the first appearance of Paul Kirk, who's known in the title of the story as the Manhunter. And we know that that's the name of a character that DC uses over and over again. I noticed this is cracked, and I'm not sure that it was listed as cracked, so I may be checking up with the seller on that. But otherwise, another stunning book in a 7.0. In addition to being the first appearance of the Manhunter, this is only the 11th appearance of Our Man in Adventure Comics, and there are only 24 universal copies in the CGC census. Another real stunner. Notice, too, that this was also a comic book that had had some editions printed with 15 cents in Canada in this bar, and we also got the non-Canada pricing issue here. Beautiful cover by Bernard Bailey. And even this is not the newest slab, so there's a good chance this book has never been cleaned or pressed either. Next up, we have a stunning Starman cover in Adventure Comics. So this is 1 year later. Adventure 58 here. Adventure 70 here. And you can see the interleaving paper that CGC places in the book is showing here a little bit. We might be able to sort of just bang the book around and get that back in place, but I'm not going to try to do that on camera right now. This issue's from January 1942, as I said, exactly 12 months after this issue. It's only the 10th appearance of Starman in Adventure Comics, and the first appearance of the villainous Bookworm. It's also noted as the last appearance of the Federal Men, and There are only 19 universal examples of this book in the CGC census. I can't communicate enough to you how incredible it is to me and how humbling for me to be able to own books like these from the Golden Age, pre-war, important books for which there are only, a few dozen examples known with regard to the CGC census anyway. I'm truly humbled. You know that I view myself as a caretaker for these books, and I'm just beyond thrilled to be able to put them in my personal collection. So more about that in a little bit. Let's open the last one here. This one's a little bit more attainable for most. This is Fantastic Four number 45 in CGC Universal 8.5. This is from December 1965, and it's obviously the first appearance of the Inhumans. And this is obviously a Stan and Jack masterpiece, and it has implications for MCU, and it's a pretty significant key. Now, this is a much less rare book. There are over 3,000 universal copies in the CGC census. However, 8.5, this book is tough in high grade. 8.5 is actually right at the 10th percentile, making this a very sought after Silver Age key. Regular viewers of the channel know that I like to sort of put the line at high grade for Silver Age keys at about the 20th percentile or higher. So this book coming in at the 10th percentile is what I consider to be high grade for the Silver Age. This is the only one of these 4 slabs that is in a newer CGC slab. And it's really a beautiful example and a nice, clean, crystal clear slab. So, how best to display these while we chat about how I got them? Maybe something like that. How's that? Before I acquire any asset, including comic books, my first step is to determine the fair market value. But these 3 Golden Age books are so rare that they do not trade hands often enough to determine a fair market value. I tend to look at books like these as treasures that if you want to own them, you need to buy them when they become available on the marketplace. But I also want them to be well bought, so that when I pass away and my daughters need to liquidate my estate, they'll have an asset that appreciated while I was its caretaker. So let's get into how I determine what I think is a fair price and a good entry point for these assets in this bear market, and the secret to getting the best price that I promised to share. What I did was I checked other pre-war mid-grade slabbed sales of adventure comics for non-key issues. So basically, between issues 58 and 70, I started a couple issues before 58 and I finished a few issues after 70. And I just did a survey of how many books have changed hands in the last year and at what prices. There really are not very many. These are rare books. There aren't that many examples coming to market and trading hands at any given moment. But I did find 2 sales. In August, an Adventure Comics number 56 in a 7.5 traded hands for $1,600 on Comic Connect. And then last month, an Adventure Comics number 60 in a 6.5 sold for over $3,200 on Heritage auctions. Those were the only 2 sales I could find for Adventure Comics in the year that spanned these 2 books, plus a few months before and after. So I use these numbers as upper and lower bounds for what I think should be fair market value for these books today. Regarding the All-American, there were not any sales in the last year for any book within a year of this one. but it's an anthology headlined by a Justice Society of America hero from about the same time period, so I assumed the range on this book was about the same as the range for the other two. Because we're in a falling market and entering uncertain economic times, I want to acquire these books around the low end of that range, which is $1,600. For the FF number 45, the calculations are a bit easier. As I said, that comic has over 3,000 copies in the census, and slabbed copies trade hands more or less like a commodity. Sometimes a volatile commodity and one that doesn't always have a lot of liquidity and high grade, but nevertheless, it's more of like a commodity than these rarities here. Looking at sales of the last 30, 90, and 365 days, it's fairly straightforward to establish a fair market value for this book of around $1,800. So, how did I come by these gems? This purchase is from Quality Comics, a vendor on HipComic, a peer-to-peer platform for selling comic books that includes auctions and fixed-price sales, similar to other platforms that you may be more familiar with. HipComic is part of Hip E-Commerce, which was founded in 2015 by Mark Rosenberg in Raleigh, North Carolina. What is different about HipComic is they're trying to connect buyers and sellers in more of a community platform to grow the hobby. And I know that may sound like lip service, but my experience is that they really walk the walk. I first became aware of HipComic during the pandemic, and after a few purchases on the platform, I got an email from their CEO, Mark Rosenberg, asking me if he could assist me with any purchases over $350. Could you imagine getting an email from the CEO of eBay and having him actually respond? Well, I responded to Mark's email saying, yeah, of course, I would like his help in getting the best prices for the comic books I was going to purchase anyway, and he linked me up with their senior manager of customer engagement, Anna Taylor. Anna sent me an email and then followed up with a phone call and walked me through how HipComic helps put buyers and sellers together to make deals happen on higher-end comic books. And that's what I'm here to share with you today. Basically, if you identify comics you're interested in from sellers on the HipComic platform, she reaches out to the sellers directly on your behalf and negotiates to get the best price. And she even has a budget to offer as a rebate in addition to any discount that the sellers offer in order to get the deal done. For this to work, all three parties, the buyer, the seller, and HipComic, come together for a win-win-win situation. One of the great sellers on the HipComic platform is Quality Comics. They're also on other platforms and have their own website, but I prefer to buy them through HipComic because of this special concierge service. Quality Comics has a huge selection, and they offer some really remarkable, rare, and high-grade comics at already very fair prices. Regular viewers of the channel know that I love to hunt for huge discounts on comics, for which there is plenty of supply. When I'm looking at books that have higher census counts, I want, right now, especially in this market, I want 50, 60, 70, 80% off of what we were paying a year ago. But for gems like these, for true grail comics, for rarities, you have to pay retail. Or you just regret not owning the books. That's all there is to it. But Quality Comics is offering these 4 books right at around my desired entry point based on my estimation of the fair market value. I put all 4 of these books on my HipComic watch list, and I emailed Anna to ask for her help. She can see your want list if you ask her to look it up. She told me she would contact Quality Comics and get back to me. Within a day, I had an email back from her. And here are the Quality Comics ask prices, the discount she was able to negotiate with Quality Comics on my behalf, and the PayPal rebate back to me that HipComic was willing to offer after the transaction, showing me my bottom line. Of note, unlike some other vendors, HipComic does not automatically charge you sales tax, which can be very substantial. So here in Texas, we pay another 8.25% above and beyond these prices if I were to buy these from one of those other websites that adds the tax. As you can see, the pricing from Quality Comics started off very fair, but after the reduction from the seller and the rebate from HipComic, I feel I got a phenomenal deal on these 4 books. By the way, Anna provided these negotiated prices to me, and it was up to me to respond if I wanted to move forward with them. There is no high pressure or otherwise icky aspect to the transaction. And in the past, I have thanked her for trying to get me a good deal, but just passed on offers that I felt were not great deals and with no hard feelings. But I wasn't passing on this opportunity to add these grails to my PC at these prices. Needless to say, I was thrilled to pull the trigger on these 4 stunning comic books for my personal collection. And I wanted to create this video to share my experience and the HipComic Concierge program with you. To be clear, this is not a paid promotion. I'm not getting a kickback from HipComic or Quality Comics. I just wanted to share my awesome experience and hope others can take advantage of it and we can grow our hobby together. So I hope you enjoyed this video on how to evaluate the fair market value of pre-war Golden Age books that don't change hands very often, and how to get the best possible deal when you're hunting them. I want to thank Quality Comics, HipComic, and especially Anna for helping me put this deal together and getting these beauties safely to me. Please go check them out if you're hunting comic books that retail over about $350, and let them know I sent you. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, happy hunting and take care of one another.